Icade away from him, now. The words sliced through the restaurant like glass. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the soft piano in the corner seemed to lose its courage. Every head turned at once. He was already moving. Sharp suit, perfect posture, authority in every step. The kind of man people made space for without being told. But tonight, there was no calm control in him, just something tight, something close to breaking. His eyes were locked on one person, Waitress. She was kneeling beside a small boy at a corner table. Her tray rested on the floor. One hand hovered gently near the boy, not touching, not forcing, just there. Didn't look scared, not even when the man reached them. I said, "Get away from him." His voice dropped lower this time, controlled. Dangerous. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud. The waitress slowly lifted her head and met his gaze. No panic, no apology rushing out, just calm. "Don't care what you were doing." He stepped closer, placing himself between her and the boy. A wall, a barrier. "You don't touch him, you don't talk to him. You don't go near him." The boy sat completely still, small hands curled in his lap, eyes fixed somewhere past the table, past the room, past everything. Like he wasn't really here, like he never really was. The CEO's jaw tightened as he glanced down at him. "Are you okay?" he asked, softer now, controlled again. No response, not a blink, not a movement. The silence stretched. It always did. Behind them, people were watching. Some curious, some uncomfortable, some pretending not to see while clearly seeing everything. The waitress slowly stood up. "I noticed he was overwhelmed," she said quietly. "I thought maybe you thought wrong." The words came fast, sharp. "You don't understand him." Something flickered in her eyes then. Not anger, not fear, recognition. She glanced at the boy for a second longer than she should have, and that's when it happened. So small most people would have missed it. A shift. The boy's fingers loosened. His shoulders dropped just slightly. And then his lips moved. Not randomly, not unconsciously. They curved. Carefully, like the expression itself was unfamiliar. A smile. The kind that didn't belong to reflex. The kind that had meaning. The kind that shouldn't have been possible. Not here. Not like this. The CEO froze. Completely. His body stopped mid-motion like someone had pulled him out of time. His breath caught somewhere in his chest, refusing to move forward. He stared at his son, really stared, waiting for it to disappear, for it to snap back into silence. But it didn't. The boy was still smiling. Faint. Fragile. Heavier. Like something invisible had just shifted, and nobody knew how to react. The CEO's eyes slowly lifted, not to the crowd, not to the manager who had started walking toward them, but to her. Waitress. She hadn't moved. She hadn't smiled back. She hadn't reacted like this was some miracle moment. She just stood there, calm, grounded, like this wasn't surprising at all, like she had been expecting it. That unsettled him more than anything. His voice cracked slightly, then steadied. "What did you do?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved briefly to the boy, then back to him. "I didn't do anything," she said softly. That answer hit harder than if she had explained. Everything, because it didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. Years of specialists, endless therapy sessions, doctors with degrees and answers that never worked. And yet this, one moment, one stranger, and his son, smiled. The CEO looked back down. The smile was fading now, slipping away like it was never meant to stay long. But it had happened. He had seen it. He knew he had. His chest tightened, not with anger this time, with something unfamiliar, something uncomfortable, something I couldn't control. Slowly his gaze lifted again, back to her. Standing there in a simple uniform, no authority, no title, no reason to matter in his world. And yet she had just done what no one else could. The question formed in his mind before he could stop it. Who is she, and how did she reach a place he never could? The city always looked smaller from his office. Glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, framing everything below like it belonged to him. Cars moved in clean lines. People walked with purpose. Every detail, every motion at all made sense from up here. Control, that's what he built his life on. Every decision calculated, every risk measured, every outcome predicted. He didn't guess, he didn't hope, he made things happen. Inside the boardroom, no one questioned him. They listened, they adjusted, they followed. His words carried weight, not because he demanded it, but because he had earned it. He had started with nothing, no connections, no safety net. Own nights, sharper instincts, and a refusal to fail. And now he owned everything he once couldn't even enter. But there was one place where none of it worked. Home. The house was bigger than most hotels. Clean lines, perfect design. Quiet in a way that felt intentional. Too quiet. He walked through it every night the same way. Shoes echoing lightly against polished floors. Jacket off. Phone still in hand. Calls. Meetings. Always something. Until he reached the living room. Everything stopped. His son would be there. Same place. Same posture. Sitting on the edge of the couch or the floor, staring at something invisible. A toy untouched beside him. A screen playing something he wasn't watching. No reaction. Acknowledgement. No connection. He said it every time. Same tone. Nothing. Not even a glance. At first he thought it was a phase. Something temporary. Something he could solve. He hired specialists. The best ones. Flew them in if he had to. Consulted experts who spoke in precise language and confident timelines. Progress takes time. We'll get there. This is normal. He listened. He paid. He followed every instruction. Routine charts, behavioral plans, sensory tools. Nothing worked. Weeks turned into months, months into years. Still nothing. The silence didn't change. What changed was him. He became more precise, more controlled, more focused. If something didn't work, he adjusted. If progress slowed, he pushed harder. How life worked, that's how success worked. Except this wasn't business. And the harder he tried, the further away his son seemed. He didn't understand it. Didn't accept it. There had to be a solution. There always was. Try new environments, one therapist suggested. Break routine. Let him experience different spaces. Exposure, that was the word they used. So he agreed. A public place. Controlled but different. A high-end restaurant. Quiet. Structured. Predictable. He booked a private table first. Then changed it. Number. If this was going to work, it had to be real. They sat in the main dining area. The moment they walked in, he felt it. Eyes. Subtle but there. People noticed him. They always did. But tonight it was different. Tonight he noticed them noticing something else. His son. The way he walked slightly behind. The way he avoided looking at anyone. The way his hands moved slightly, like he was trying to steady himself. They sat. Menus were placed. Water poured. Everything smooth. Professional. But his son didn't touch anything. Didn't look at the menu. Didn't look at him. Try the soup, he said calmly, sliding the menu closer. No response. Minutes passed. The noise of the restaurant slowly built soft conversations, clinking glasses, distant laughter. To anyone else, it was nothing. To his son, it was everything. The boy's shoulders tightened. His fingers curled. His breathing changed. The CEO noticed immediately. "Hey," he said, leaning slightly. "Howard." Still nothing. The boy's gaze dropped further, like he was retreating somewhere no one could reach. People began to glance over. Not openly, but enough. Enough for him to feel it. Judgment. Not of his money. Not of his status. As a father. The boy shifted in his seat, clearly overwhelmed now. The CEO tried to keep his voice steady. "You're fine, just sit still." But the words didn't land. They never did. The silence grew heavier, and then he noticed movement beside. Waitress. She had approached quietly. No sudden steps, no forced smile. Just presence. She didn't speak immediately. Didn't interrupt. She watched. Not like others. Not with curiosity. Not with discomfort. With understanding. That's what made it different. That's what made it dangerous. Because somehow she saw something he didn't. And before he could stop it, she stepped closer. Long before the polished floors, the soft music, and the quiet judgment of a luxury restaurant, her world sounded very different. Sirens at night. Voices through thin walls. The hum of a neighborhood that never really slept. She grew up in a place where people noticed everything: what you wore, how you spoke, where you stood and decided who you were before you even opened your mouth. So she learned early not to speak first. She watched. She listened. She paid attention to the things people didn't say. Because in her world, the loudest truths were always hidden in silence. Their apartment was small. Our rooms, barely enough space for 3 people. Paint peeling in the corners. A window that didn't close all the way during winter. But that wasn't what made it hard. It was her brother. He was younger. Quiet in a way that made people uncomfortable. Not shy. Not withdrawn. Just somewhere else. Teachers didn't understand him. Neighbors whispered about him. Even family members kept their distance, unsure how to act, what to say. He didn't respond when called. Didn't look at people when they didn't react the way others expected. And the world didn't like what it couldn't understand. Doctors gave labels. Schools gave warnings. Special needs. Delayed development. Difficult to manage. Words that sounded official but never helped. She would sit beside him for hours after school. No pressure. No demands. Just there. At first nothing happened. He wouldn't look at her, wouldn't speak, wouldn't move unless he needed to, but she noticed things others missed. The way his tapped in patterns, the way his breathing changed with noise, the way his eyes flickered when something caught his attention for just a second too long. So she followed that, not with instructions, with patience. If he tapped, she tapped too. If he stared at something, she sat beside him and stared at it with him. No questions, no forcing. Days passed like that, weeks, months, and then one day he looked at her, just for a second, but it was enough. It felt like breaking through glass, without making a sound. After that, the moments came slowly. A glance, a shift, a small movement closer instead of away. Tiny things, things no one else would notice. But to her, they meant everything. Because she wasn't trying to fix him. She was trying to understand him. The world didn't see it that way. Teachers still complained. Neighbors still judged. People still whispered, "Why doesn't he act normal? Something's wrong with him. Why don't you do something?" She wanted to scream. Sometimes, to tell them they were the ones who didn't understand. But she didn't. She just kept listening. Years passed. Life got harder. Money got tighter. Her mother worked longer hours. Bills piled up. Opportunities stayed out of reach. So she worked. Anything she could find. Cleaning jobs. Late shifts. Standing for hours with a forced smile. And always the same looks. The same tone. "You people just follow instructions. Don't make it complicated." Sometimes it was direct. Sometimes it hidden behind polite words. But it was always there. Reminder of where she stood. What people thought she was worth. A waitress. Nothing more. They ever saw how she moved through a room. How she read people without asking. How she noticed discomfort before it turned into anger. How she adjusted without making it obvious. They never saw the skill in that, because it didn't come with a title, or a degree, or a price tag, but she carried it anyway, quietly, patiently, like she always had. Back in the restaurant, years later, that same awareness hadn't left her. It had sharpened, evolved. The moment the boy walked in, she noticed, not because he was different, but because he was overwhelmed. The way his shoulders held tension, the way his eyes avoided everything, the way the noise seemed louder around him than anyone else. She didn't need a diagnosis. She didn't need confirmation. She recognized the silence. She had lived with it. And when she saw his father's straight posture, controlled movements, eyes scanning, calculating, managing, she recognized something else. Someone trying too hard to control what couldn't be controlled. Someone missing the quiet signals right in front of him. So when she stepped closer, it wasn't random. It wasn't bold. It was instinct. She lowered herself to the boy's level, not speaking right away, not interrupting his space, just existing near him, the same way she used to. She watched his hands, his breathing, the slight tension in his, ah. And then she did something simple. She matched his rhythm. Not obvious, not forced, just enough. A silent conversation, the kind no one else in that room would understand, because they weren't listening, but she was. She always had been. And that's why when everyone else saw a problem, she saw a voice, one that didn't need words, just someone willing to hear it. The smile was gone. Not completely erased, but fading like something fragile that didn't belong in the open for too long. The Awe's face settled back into stillness. But the air had already changed, and the CEO felt it. His chest rose slowly, tightly controlled, as if even his breathing needed permission now. His eyes stayed fixed on his son for 1 second longer. 2, 3. Then he turned. "What exactly did you do?" The question came out colder than before. Not loud, not aggressive, precise, like he was dissecting a problem. The waitress didn't shift under his gaze, didn't step back, didn't rush, explain. She simply looked at him. "I didn't do anything," she said. A pause. "I just met him where he is." The words landed and stayed there, heavy, unmoving. The CEO blinked once as if waiting for more. There wasn't any. His jaw tightened slightly. "That's not an answer." "It is," she replied, calm. "Just not the kind you're used to." A flicker of something crossed his face. Annoyance, or maybe something closer to discomfort. He straightened his posture, reclaiming the space around him. "I've worked with specialists," he said. "People who actually know what they're doing." His tone sharpened on the last sentence. "They don't speak in vague statements." She didn't react to that either. Didn't defend herself. Didn't challenge him. She just glanced at the boy again. Still calm. Tense. Not overwhelmed. That difference was small, but it was there, and it didn't go unnoticed. Behind them, the restaurant had started breathing again. Conversations returned, but softer now. Careful. Yes, eyes still lingered. The manager appeared at the edge of the scene, watching, calculating. He caught the waitress's attention for a brief second, a subtle tilt of the head. A signal. Step away. Don't complicate this. She saw it, didn't move. The CEO noticed that too. This isn't your responsibility, he said, his voice lower now. Controlled again, but edged with authority. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. Her eyes returned to him. I'm not doing anything to. I am, she said quietly. I'm just not forcing him to be something he's not. That did it. A slight shift. His shoulders squared. That's exactly the problem, he said. He needs structure. Direction. Consistency. Or maybe, she replied. Just as steady, he needs space. Silence. Not the quiet of comfort. The kind that presses. The kind that waits. The CEO took a step closer. Not aggressive, but deliberate. You don't know him, he said. Her expression didn't change. I know what overwhelmed looks like. And you think that makes you qualified? His voice dipped slightly, almost mocking now. I think it makes me aware, she said. Another pause. Longer this time. Something unspoken moved between them. Not loud, but undeniable. He was used to having it. Used to controlling every room he entered. But right now it didn't feel as clear. He glanced down at his son again. Still calm. Still quiet. No signs of distress. That alone was enough to unsettle him, because it shouldn't. I've been like this. Not here. Not after everything. Not because of her. His eyes narrowed slightly. You need to go, he said. Not loud. Not angry. But final. A boundary. The manager stepped closer now, sensing the shift. Yes, he added quickly, his voice polished and careful. We'll take it from here. The message was clear. Stay in your place. The waitress looked at the manager, then back at the CEO. For a moment it seemed like she might say something. Push back, but she didn't. She simply nodded once. Composed, like she had already expected this. All right, she said softly. No frustration. No argument. Just acceptance. She bent slightly, picking up her tray from the floor. As she straightened, her eyes moved to the boy one last time, and something subtle happened. So small it almost didn't exist. The boy's fingers shifted, a slight movement, toward her. Then stopped. The moment passed before anyone could fully see it, except her, and maybe him. The CEO's gaze. Eye flickered between them. Too fast to understand, too quiet to confront. But something stayed, something unsettled. She turned and walked away. No rush. No hesitation. Just steady steps back into the rhythm of the restaurant. Like nothing had happened, but everything had. The CEO remained standing for a moment longer, then slowly sat down. His eyes stayed on his son, waiting. Understand something that didn't follow his rules. Around him, the restaurant returned to normal. Pots moved. Voices rose. Glasses clinked. But at that table, nothing felt the same. His son didn't shut down again. Didn't retreat further. He stayed present, quiet, but there. And that shouldn't have been possible. The CEO leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable now. Control was still there, but something underneath it had shifted, cracked, just enough to let a question through. One he didn't like, one he couldn't ignore. What if she was right? His jaw tightened again. Number. Didn't fit. Didn't make sense. Didn't align with anything he believed. And yet his son sat there, calm, because of her. Across the room, the waitress moved between tables like nothing had happened. Serving, listening, blending into the background, exactly where people expected her to be. But now he couldn't unsee it, couldn't dismiss it, couldn't file it away as irrelevant, because for a moment, she had stepped outside that place and changed something he couldn't control. The system, around him, status, hierarchy, expectation had already corrected itself. Put her back where she belonged, but the effect she left behind didn't go with her. The manager didn't wait long. He stepped in with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, his posture slightly bent in practiced politeness. His voice was soft, careful, but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Sir, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. The word inconvenience hung in the air like a lie everyone agreed not to question. Our CEO didn't respond immediately. His gaze remained on his son, but his attention had shifted. The situation was no longer contained. It was becoming visible. The manager turned slightly toward the waitress, his expression tightening just enough to send a message. What were you thinking? He said under his breath, but not quiet enough. You don't approach guests like that, especially not without permission. A few heads turned again, subtle, curious. Waitress stood still. Tray in, on. Shoulders relaxed. I saw he was overwhelmed, she said, her voice even. I thought I could help. The manager let out a small breath like he had expected that answer. That's not your role, he replied. We have protocols, you follow them. He turned back to the CEO, smile returning instantly. Again, sir, we value your experience here. This will be handled. Handled. The word landed differently this time. Not as reassurance, as removal. The waitress didn't look at the manager. Her eyes shifted once to the boy. Still quiet. Had changed. Attention beginning to creep back into his small frame. The CEO noticed that. A flicker. But there. His fingers tapped lightly against the table. Not out of rhythm. Not yet. Just the beginning. The manager took a small step closer to the waitress now, lowering his voice further. I need you to step away from this table. Immediately. There it was. Clear. The line drawn. Around them the restaurant had. Quieter again. Conversations dropped into murmurs. Silverware moved slower. Eyes stayed longer than they should. Everyone watching without looking like they were watching. The waitress didn't argue, didn't defend herself again. She simply nodded once. A small movement. Controlled, like she had learned a long time ago when speaking would only make things worse. Of course, she said. No edge, no resistance, just acceptance. But it didn't feel like surrender. It felt heavier than that. Upped back slowly, her movement calm, measured. Not rushed, embarrassed. And somehow that made it worse, because she didn't give them anything to justify what was happening. No attitude, no mistake, just quiet compliance, the kind that exposes everything else. The CEO remained seated, watching, saying nothing. He could have stopped it. A single sentence, that's enough. That's all it would have taken. But he didn't. His silence carried weight. Approval, whether he meant it or not. Manager took it that way. Thank you, he said to the CEO, nodding slightly before turning away, already moving to erase the moment. But the moment didn't erase. Spread soft whispers slipped between tables. She crossed a line to still she was just trying to help. Did you see the kid? Something's not right there. Eyes moved quickly when they were noticed. Judgment didn't stay in one place. It shifted. Between her. Between the situation no one fully understood but everyone. The waitress turned. One last look, not at the manager, not in the room, at the boy, just for a second. And in that second something small happened. His hand moved, barely, a slight reach, not full, not obvious, but intentional, toward her. Then it stopped, frozen midair before falling back into his lap. No one saw it, no one reacted, except the moment itself slipping quietly between them. She didn't move toward him, didn't break the line that had just been drawn. She only held that, for a fraction longer. Then she turned away and walked, back into the rhythm of the restaurant, back into the place she was allowed to exist, serving other tables, carrying trays, blending into the background, like nothing had happened, but something had. At the table, the CEO sat still, too still. His eyes dropped to his son again. The calm was fading, not dramatically. Not yet, but the edges were fraying. The boy's shoulders tightened again. His fingers curled inward. The tapping, this time faster, less controlled. The noise of the restaurant seemed louder now, sharper, closer. The CEO leaned forward slightly. Hey, he said, keeping his voice low. It's okay. No response. The boy's gaze dropped further, retreating inward. The moment, the fragile, impossible moment that had existed just minutes ago was slipping away. And the CEO felt it, a tight pull in his chest. Not panic, not yet, but something close. His eyes shifted almost unconsciously toward the direction she had gone. She was across the room now, serving another table, focused. Like she had never been part of this, like she had never changed anything. His jaw tightened. He looked back at his son. The tapping grew sharper, faster, the rhythm breaking. Regret flickered. Welcome. But it was there. He pushed it down immediately, replaced it with control, structure, the things that made sense. He straightened slightly, reached for the water glass, placed it carefully closer. The boy. Drink, he said. Eyes continued. Inside the boy. Eyed him. And for the first time that night, the CEO realized something he didn't want to admit. He had just watched something work, and then he let it be taken away. Eyes didn't change, but something inside the boy did. It started small. A twitch in his fingers, a tighter curl of his shoulders. His breathing, once slow and steady, began to shorten quick, uneven pulls that barely reached his chest. The CEO noticed immediately. He always did. Hey, he said again, leaning forward. Lowering his voice like volume was the problem. Look at me. The boy's gaze dropped further, like he was sinking into himself, slipping away from everything around. The tapping returned. Faster now, not rhythmic, fractured. The sound of its soft, rapid contact against the table cut through everything else. The CEO straightened slightly, trying to stay composed, trying to follow the structure he had been taught. "K?" He reached for the menu, sliding it gently closer. "Let's pick something you like." The words fell apart before they could finish. The boy's hands moved again, this time pulling inward, closer to his body. His head tilted slightly, like he was trying to escape something pressing in from all sides. The restaurant noise felt sharper now, louder, too many voices overlapping, glass against glass. A burst of laughter from somewhere too close. The boy flinched, just slightly, but enough. The CEO felt it like a warning. "Hey," he tried again, firmer this time. "Sit still." The tapping turned into pressing, fingers digging lightly into the table's surface, searching for something solid. "Stop." The word came out sharper than he intended. A couple at the next table glanced over, then another. It was happening again. That shift, from curiosity to attention. The CEO leaned closer, lowering his voice again, forcing control back into it. "You're fine," he said. "There's nothing wrong, just breathe." But the boy wasn't listening. He wasn't here. His breathing grew louder now. Quick, uneven. The tapping stopped, replaced by stillness, the kind that comes right before everything breaks. The CEO froze for half a second. He knew this moment. He had seen it too many times. Hey, too late. The boy's hands shot up, pressing against his ears. His body curled slightly inward. His chair scraped loudly against the floor as he shifted. A sharp sound escaped him, not a word. Raw. Something pulled from deep inside where language didn't exist. The restaurant fell silent again. Not completely, but enough. Enough for it to feel exposed. The CEO's chest tightened. "Stop," he said again, more urgently now. "You're okay, just stop." But nothing was stopping. The boy rocked slightly back and forth, trying to block out the world that had become too loud, too bright, too much. A glass clinked somewhere nearby. Too sharp, too sudden. The boy flinched harder this time, his movement more intense, more desperate. People were staring now, not hiding it, not pretending anymore. The whispers returned, louder. "He's having some kind of episode, why would they bring him here?" "That's not." IATEO heard it all. Every word, every tone, and for the first time it didn't feel like judgment of his status. It felt like exposure of his failure. His jaw tightened. His hands hovered awkwardly in front of him, unsure where to go, what to do. "Sit still," he said again, his voice strained now. "You're fine." But the words sounded empty, even to him, because they weren't true. The boy wasn't fine, and nothing he was doing was helping. That realization hit harder than anything else. Just minutes ago he had seen calm. Real calm. Not forced, not controlled, and he had pushed it away. Across the room, the waitress moved between tables, carrying plates, speaking softly to customers, her expression unchanged. But the distance between them now felt intentional. She didn't look over, didn't step closer, didn't interfere. Like she had accepted her place in the system that had just corrected her. And the CEO felt it, that distance, that absence, more than anything happening. At the table, the boy let out another sound. Louder this time, more desperate. His hands pressed harder against his ears, his body rocking faster now, trying to escape something no one else could see. The CEO swallowed hard. "Hey!" His voice cracked slightly, a small fracture, barely noticeable, but there. He glanced around. People were watching openly now, some uncomfortable, some annoyed, some judging, all present, all witnessing. The control he built his entire life on was slipping. Right here, in front of everyone. His eyes moved again, across the room. She had paused near another table, just for a second, not looking at him, but not fully turned away either, like she could feel it, without seeing it. The CEO's breath slowed, not from calm, from decision. Something shifted inside him, not pride, not authority, something quieter. He looked back at his son, then again at her, and this time he didn't hesitate. Wait. The word left his mouth before he could shape it, into something stronger. It wasn't loud. It wasn't commanding. It didn't carry the weight he was used to, but it carried something else. She stopped. Not immediately, but enough to show she heard. The manager noticed too, his posture tightening slightly as he followed the direction of the CEO's voice. The room held its breath again. The CEO stood, deliberately, but not with the same confidence as before. This movement felt different, less certain, more human. Words didn't come easily, not because he didn't know what he wanted to say, but because he wasn't used to saying it like this. His eyes met hers, and for the first time there was no command in them, only something raw, something real. "Can you help him?" The sentence landed softly, but its weight was undeniable. The manager stepped forward quickly. "Sir, that won't be necessary. It will be," the CEO said, cutting him off. Not sharply, but firmly. Different kind of control. ID situation. Over himself. Manager stopped. The system hesitated, and in that small space something shifted. The waitress turned fully now, looking at him, not surprised. Satisfied, just present, like she had been waiting for this moment. Not for recognition, not for validation, for permission, and now he had finally given it. Without realizing it, he had just done something he had never done before. He let go, just enough to ask for help. The room didn't disappear. It just softened. The noise pulled back like it had finally realized it was too much. Conversations lowered. Movements slowed. Even the lights felt less sharp, less demanding. But at the center of it, nothing felt calm. The boy's breathing was uneven, his small body still tight, still fighting something invisible. His hands pressed hard against his ears, his eyes shut now, like shutting out the world was the only defense he had left. The CEO stood beside him, frozen between action and uncertainty. At a time in a long time he didn't know what to do. Not what he thought he should do, not what he had been told to do. Nothing. The waitress moved closer, slowly, carefully, as if even her footsteps understood the weight of the moment. She didn't rush, didn't speak. She simply reached the table and stopped at a distance that didn't invade, didn't overwhelm. Then she lowered herself again, back to the boy's level. Like before, like she belonged there. The CEO stepped back slightly, without realizing it, just enough to create space. Not for control, for something else, something he didn't fully understand yet. "Can we move him?" he asked quietly. His voice had changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't certain. It was careful. She glanced around, then toward a quieter corner near the back, away from the crowd, away from the noise. "Slowly," she said, not as an order. As guidance. The CEO hesitated for a second, then nodded. Together they shifted, not lifting, not forcing, just guiding, step by step, until the boy was seated in a quieter space, away from the eyes, away from the pressure. The difference wasn't immediate, but it was there, subtle. The boy's rocking slowed, his breathing still uneven but less frantic. The waitress remained at his level, still not touching him, still not speaking, just present. The CEO stood nearby, watching, waiting, feeling something unfamiliar pressing against his chest. Helplessness. He swallowed hard. "I've tried everything," he said suddenly. The words came out before he could stop them, not directed at her, not fully. Just released. "I've done what they told me, every specialist, every plan, he stopped. His voice tightened. The words didn't want to come out clean anymore. "I don't understand him." Silence followed. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Different kind of silence. The kind that lets things exist without fixing them. The waitress didn't look at him right away. Her focus stayed on the watching his breathing, matching its rhythm without making it obvious. Then, slowly, she spoke. "You're trying to reach him from your world," she said. Her voice was soft, steady, but he's not there. The CEO let out a short breath. "That's the problem," he said quietly. "He should be." She shook her head slightly. "No." That one word landed harder than anything else she had said. "No? Now?" Confusion, deeper beneath both. "He lives in his own pace," she continued. "His own way of understanding things. You can't pull him out of it." "Then what am I supposed to do?" The question came sharper, but not aggressive, desperate. That was new. She finally looked at him, directly, not intimidated, not impressed. Just seeing him, "You go to him." The CEO blinked. "That's not how it works." "It is," she said calmly. He shook his head slightly, almost laughing, but there was no humor in it. "I've spent years trying to make this work," he said. Years. "You think I haven't tried everything?" Her expression didn't change. "I think you've tried everything that makes sense to you." That stung, because it was true, and he knew it. He looked away for a second, toward his son. Still not okay, but not as far gone as before. Somewhere in between. Suspended. Waiting. "I don't know how to do that," he said. The admission came quietly, barely above a whisper, but it carried more weight than anything he had said all night. "I don't know how to. I reach him." There it was. No control, no certainty, just truth. The waitress didn't respond immediately. She let the words settle, let them exist. Then she said gently, "You're trying to fix him." He frowned slightly. "What's wrong with that?" She held his gaze. "He doesn't need fixing." A pause. The CEO's jaw tightened slightly. "Then what does he need?" Her answer came without hesitation. "He needs to feel safe." The words were simple, but they hit like something much bigger. The CEO didn't speak, didn't move, because suddenly everything he had been doing didn't fit that. The instructions, the corrections, the constant pushing, the need to make progress, to see results, to change something. It wasn't safety, it was pressure, and his son had been living inside it. The realization didn't come loud, it came quietly, and that made it worse. He looked down at his hands. For the first time that night, they weren't steady. They told me structure was important, he said. It is, but not like this. He exhaled slowly, heavy, as if something inside him was finally loosening. I thought if I just kept trying harder. His voice faded. Didn't finish. It didn't need to. She understood. You don't have to try harder, she said. You have to try differently. Silence again. But this time it felt different. Lighter. Not because the problem was gone, but because something had shifted. Inside him, the CEO looked at his son. Really looked. Not as something to solve. Not as something to manage, but as a child. Sitting there, overwhelmed, trying to exist in a world that didn't slow down. His expression softened, just slightly. And for the first time, he didn't reach for control. He stayed still and listened. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt intentional, the kind of quiet that held space instead of filling it. The boy's breathing was still uneven, but it had slowed. The sharp edges of panic were softening, replaced by something fragile, something that could either settle or shatter again. The waitress stayed where she was, low, still, not watching him in a way that demanded anything, just aware of him like she was part of the same space, not an interruption in it. The CEO stood there for a moment, unsure. His instincts were pulling at him. Fix it. Do something. Say something. But the words she had spoken earlier lingered. He doesn't need fixing. He needs to feel safe. Safe didn't look like action. It looked like itis. He hesitated, then slowly lowered himself into the chair beside his son. Not across from him, not towering over him. Beside him. The movement felt unfamiliar, almost wrong, but he stayed. For a second, nothing changed. The boy didn't react, didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge that he had moved at all. The CEO's fingers twitched slightly on his knee. That urge again. To speak, to guide, to take control. He swallowed it, stayed quiet. The waitress shifted just slightly, not drawing attention to it. She adjusted her posture to match the boy's rhythm, subtle, almost invisible. A quiet alignment. The CEO noticed. He tried to do the same. At first, it felt forced, unnatural. He shifted his shoulders, adjusted his breathing, slowed it down consciously, deliberately. It wasn't smooth, but it was effort. The boy's rocking had softened now. Still there, but slower, less urgent. The space between each movement stretched slightly longer. A small change, but real. The CEO saw it, and time he didn't interrupt it. He let it happen. Seconds passed. Then a minute. The restaurant continued in the background, distant now, like it belonged to another world. Here everything was quieter, more focused. The waitress reached for a napkin from the table, slowly, deliberately. She didn't hand it to the boy, but didn't place it in front of him. She simply set it down near him, close enough to be noticed, not close enough to feel forced. Then she withdrew her hand. The CEO, trying to understand the logic. There wasn't any, not the kind he was used to, and yet the boy's fingers shifted, barely. A slight movement toward the napkin, then paused, like he was deciding, like he had space to decide. The CEO's breath caught slightly. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't ruin it. Another second. Then the boy's fingers touched the edge of the napkin. Light, careful, he didn't pick it up, just touched it, explored it. The CEO felt something tighten in his chest. Not pressure, something else, something unfamiliar. Hope, small, fragile, but there. The waitress didn't react, didn't smile, didn't acknowledge the moment. She just stayed present, like this was normal, like this was how things were supposed to happen. The CEO tried to mirror that, tried to stay still, but it was harder for him. His mind kept racing ahead. What next? What does this mean? How do I build on this? The questions came fast, loud, demanding. He forced them down, focused on the moment, on his son. The boy's breathing slowed further, his shoulders loosened. The tension that had locked his body just minutes ago was fading, piece by piece. Then a shift, small, but undeniable. The boy's head tilted slightly, not away, not inward, toward something. The CEO felt it before he saw it. That subtle change in direction, that opening. His instinct screamed at him, say something, now. But he didn't. He stayed quiet. The hardest thing he had ever done. The boy's eyes flickered, just once. Not sustained, but enough. Enough to show he was aware, present. The CEO's chest tightened again. He wanted to respond, to acknowledge it, to do something with it, but he didn't. He stayed still, let it exist, let it pass without pressure. The glance didn't repeat, but it didn't disappear either. It left something behind. A connection, fragile, but real. The waitress shifted slightly again, her movements still aligned, still grounded. I asked at the CEO briefly, not instructing, not correcting, just confirming you're doing it. He didn't nod, but something inside him understood. This wasn't about control. It wasn't about fixing. It wasn't about pushing. It was about being there, without expectation, without pressure, without needing something to happen. And somehow that was harder than everything else he had ever done. Minutes passed. Quiet. Steady. The boy's hands rested now. No tapping. No pressing. Idle. His breathing evened out. Not perfect, but calm. The CEO sat beside him. Not as a problem solver. Not as a strategist. Just there. And for the first time, it felt like he wasn't losing control. It felt like he was finally understanding something deeper. Something he couldn't measure. Something he couldn't command. Something he had to learn. Slowly, gently, the waitress stood up after a while, not abruptly, not in a way that broke the moment. She simply rose, her presence easing out of the space. The boy didn't react, stayed. The CEO noticed, and that was everything. He looked at her as she stepped back. Their eyes met for a brief second, no words, none needed, because the shift had already happened, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. This wasn't luck, it wasn't coincidence, it was understanding. And for the first time in his life, he realized he had been speaking the wrong language all along. Time slowed, not in the way people imagine dramatic, obvious. It slipped quietly, the kind of stillness that settles so gently you almost miss when everything else fades away. The restaurant was still there. Voices, light, but none of it reached him anymore, because right now there was only this table, this moment, and the small space between him and his son. He sat beside him exactly where he had been for the past several minutes. Not moving, not speaking, just breathing, steady, measured. Learning, the boy's hands rested on the table now. No tapping, no tension pulling at his fingers, just still. His shoulders had dropped. His breathing had evened out into something softer, something manageable. The chaos from earlier felt distant, like it had happened somewhere else. The CEO didn't look at him directly, not in the way he used to, not searching, not expecting, just present. The urge to do something was still there. It hadn't disappeared. It sat quietly beneath the surface, waiting for him to slip back into old habits. Say something, ask something, push. But he didn't. He held it back. Let the silence exist without trying to control it, because now he understood. This wasn't empty. This was connection, even if it didn't look like one. Seconds passed, then more. The boy shifted slightly, not away, not inward. Adjusting, the movement was small, intentional. The CEO noticed, to react, to acknowledge it, to build on it, but he stayed still, let it happen without interruption. The boy's fingers moved again, lightly brushing the surface of the table, not restless, not frantic, exploring, present. The CEO's breathing matched his, without thinking, without forcing, just naturally. And then something changed. The boy's head tilted, slowly, carefully, like the movement itself required effort. His gaze shifted, not downward, not away, but sideways, toward him. The CEO felt it before he fully saw it. That shift, that attention, his, tightened. Not with fear, with something deeper, something he couldn't name. He didn't move, didn't break the fragile line that was forming. The boy's eyes lifted slightly, still not fully focused, still hesitant, but closer, closer than ever before. And then for the first time they met, not accidentally, not briefly. The boy looked at him, really looked. The moment stretched, thin, fragile, like it could break if anything changed. The CEO didn't breathe, didn't blink, move, because he knew this was it. This was the moment he had been chasing for years, not through money, not through control, not through strategy, but through something he had only just begun to understand. The boy's expression stayed neutral for a second, unreadable, and then it shifted, so slowly it almost didn't happen. The corners of his mouth moved, just slightly, then more, a curve forming, careful, unfamiliar, but real, a smile, not accidental, not fleeting, directed at him. The CEO froze. Everything inside him stopped. His thoughts, instincts, his control, all of it disappeared in an instant, because this wasn't something he could analyze. This wasn't something he could explain. This wasn't something he could measure or predict or recreate. This was something he had never had before. His son was smiling at him. The world around him disappeared completely now. The restaurant, the people, the noise, none of it existed. There was only this one moment, this one connection. His chest tightened sharply, not painfully. His throat closed slightly, like it didn't know how to handle what was happening. His eyes stayed locked on his son, afraid that if he moved it would vanish. The smile stayed, but steady. The CEO felt something break inside him, not violently. Like a wall that had been standing for too long finally giving way. His eyes burned. He didn't realize it at. Didn't notice the moisture gathering until it slipped. One tear, then another. He didn't wipe them, didn't try to stop them, because for once he wasn't in control, and he didn't need to be. His son's eyes held his for another second, then another. The connection didn't disappear. It didn't collapse. It stayed, real, alive. The CEO let out a slow breath, shaky and steady, nothing like the controlled breaths he had mastered his entire life. This one was honest, raw. His lips parted, slightly like he wanted to say something, but no words came. And for once that was okay, because this didn't need words. It didn't need explanation. It didn't need anything except what it already was. Across the room, the waitress stood still, not close, not part of the moment, but present, watching, not with pride, not with expectation, just quiet understanding. She didn't step forward, didn't interrupt, didn't claim anything, because she knew this wasn't about her. It never was. The CEO didn't look at her. He didn't need to, because everything he needed to understand was sitting right beside him, smiling. For the first time, and in that moment, nothing he had ever built, nothing he had ever achieved, nothing he had ever controlled, came close to this. This was different. This was everything. The moment didn't end. It lingered. For real. The boy's smile faded slowly, not disappearing, just settling back into something calm, something peaceful. But the connection didn't break. It stayed. The CEO sat there, still beside him, his breathing finally steady again, but different now. Lighter, less forced. He didn't rush to speak, didn't reach out. He just stayed. And for once, staying felt like enough. Around them, the restaurant slowly returned to itself. Conversations picked back up. Plates moved. People leaned into their own worlds again. But the energy had changed. Some had seen it. Not fully understood it, but felt it. The CEO wiped his face, quietly brushing away the last trace of tears. Not embarrassed, not hiding, just present. His eyes shifted. She was standing near the service station, listening to another staff member, nodding slightly, her posture calm, unchanged, like she hadn't just shifted something that couldn't be undone. He watched her for a second, then stood, not abruptly, not with authority, just naturally. He took a step away from the table. Another. The manager noticed immediately, adjusting his jacket, preparing himself. "Sir, I hope everything is it is." The CEO's voice was calm, but different now. Not sharp, not distant, grounded. The manager paused, slightly thrown off by the tone. The CEO didn't stop there. He walked past him, toward her, each step deliberate but not heavy. No tension, no performance, just intention. She looked up as he approached. No surprise, no hesitation, just awareness. He stopped a few feet in front of her, close enough to speak, far enough to respect the space. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It didn't need to be filled. Then he spoke. "Thank you." Simple. No decoration, no explanation, but it carried weight. Real weight. She held his gaze. Not dismissive, just steady. "You're welcome," she said. That was it. No long conversation, no emotional exchange, just mutual understanding, respect, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. The manager stepped closer again, trying to regain structure, control. "We truly appreciate your patience, sir. If there's anything we can do, there is." The CEO turned slightly toward him. His voice remained calm, but firm. "She didn't do anything wrong." The manager blinked, caught off guard. "Of course, sir. We just have certain she did her job better than anyone here." The words landed quietly, but they carried more force than anything loud ever could. The room didn't stop, but something shifted again. Subtle. People. Listening without looking. The manager straightened slightly, unsure how to respond. "I understand," he said carefully. "No," the CEO replied. "You don't." Another pause. Then she saw something no one else did, including me. That admission changed everything. Because it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about him, what he had missed, what he had misunderstood. The manager nodded slowly, stepping back, the system adjusting again, but differently this time. The CEO turned back to her. What it's worth, he said. You should be doing more than this. She gave a small, almost invisible smile. I am, she replied. He held that for a second, then nodded, because he understood. Not fully, not completely, but enough. He returned to the table, sat beside his son again, this time not as someone trying to figure things out, but as someone willing to learn. Days passed, then weeks. The restaurant became just a memory, but the shift stayed. At home, things were still quiet, still slow, uncertain, but different. The CEO didn't rush anymore, didn't fill silence with instructions, didn't force interaction. He sat, he waited, he listened. Sometimes nothing happened. Sometimes the boy stayed in his own world. But sometimes there were moments, small ones, a glance, a shift, a quiet presence that didn't disappear. And that was enough, because now he understood what enough looked like. The changes didn't stop there. Not because he planned them, but because something inside him had changed direction. He started asking different questions, not about fixing, about understanding. He met people he had never paid attention to before, listened to voices that didn't fit into boardrooms, parents, caregivers, people who had been navigating this world quietly without recognition. And slowly he began to use what he had built, not for control, for support. Programs started, spaces created, not branded loudly, not turned into headlines, but real, designed with input from those who actually understood, not imposed from the top. The waitress never asked for anything, never showed up expecting recognition, but one day she was invited, not as staff, not as a guest, as a voice. She stood in a room full of people who once would have overlooked her, and this time they listened, because someone made sure they did. Their relationship didn't become something dramatic, no constant meetings, no forced connection, just respect, real, quiet, the kind that lasts. Back at home, the CEO sat beside his son again. Evening light spilling softly into the room. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. The boy sat beside him, calm, not perfect, but real. And then a small movement, a glance. The CEO didn't react, didn't interrupt. He just stayed, because now he knew. True power wasn't in control. It wasn't in forcing outcomes. It wasn't in having all the answers. It was in understanding what didn't come easily, in listening to what wasn't spoken, in seeing what others overlooked. And sometimes the people the world ignored were the ones who saw everything first.